Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster. Starting off the new year big. We return to the impossible lands today and look at a nation which stands alone in the mana wastes. The city-state of Alkenstar. Let's get into it. Long ago, the area was territory of dwarfs, centered around the sky keep of Dungon Hold. However, that changed when the war between Nex and Geb began going full force. In the middle of what one day would be the mana wastes, the dwarfs were forced to make a hard choice and abandon the surface, locking themselves underground where they proceeded to wallow for centuries. Then, one day, the area is visited by a man named Ansel Alkenstar, fugitive from Nex. He managed to broker peace between the local humans, the Ustrati clans, and began building a city which the people named after him. He did manage to broker an alliance with the dwarfs, bringing the residents of Dungon Hold back to the surface. Between the two people, they have created a nation which is focused on technology in a land without reliable magic, especially the creation of a dwarven invention innovated by humans, the gun. The people of Alkenstar can be summed up through its history. Alkenstar itself, while having plenty of people from different walks of life, is mostly human, and mostly part of the Gurandi people of the Ustrati clans. Dungon Hold, in turn, is mostly dwarfs, as with most sky citadels, them being the mountain dwarfs. But what really defines Alkenstar is who is kept out. The city fights constantly against the mutants at the mana wastes, and therefore are precautious to a paranoid level of keeping mutants out. However, with the definition of mutant ill-defined, in practice this means that anyone who is not from a commonly seen ancestry is not allowed in the city. Or, if we're being honest, if you just really look weird, they're not going to let you in. One of the most important things to consider when traveling in the region is the weather. Being in the mana wastes, planning for the near future is vastly important. Like all weathermen, the people of the Clockwork City have made a science at predicting the upcoming magical instabilities. These predictions divide the stability into two determinations. Bronze time, when magic is as stable as it's going to get, and it's okay to cast spells, and surge time, when magic surges and fluctuations in climate are likely, and you probably don't even want to be outside. Of course, these are just predictions, so they are likely to get the weather right about as often as are weathermen. Alkenstar is a city-state, but that does not mean it is not important place. There are not other important places outside the city walls. The Lake Ustrati is the main source of water in the region, with the river Ustrati being one of the landmarks the city is built upon. Upon the lake shore stands a gunworks, factory and fortress placed to make it hard for the secrets of firearms to get out, whether through espionage or through a more straightforward approach with guns blazing. Well, they have to successfully get in to get the guns to be blazing, but you know what I mean. Anyway, just west of Alkenstar is a small city of Martel, mining center and trade hub which provides all its wares to the main city, and also rumored to be the place where the gold reserves of Alkenstar are hidden, if you are interested in those. The river eventually leads to the Hellfire Cliffs, the other landmark Alkenstar is built on, ensuring all of those who enter the city either do so from upstream or through ways provided by the city. Then, I guess it's time to talk on the city itself. In the less than 200 years since its establishment, the city of Alkenstar has become one of the most technologically advanced nations in the world, with the only potential exception being Ustalov and their rudimentary harnessing of electricity. As a nation can produce the most guns, and one where the deity brig is a major one, innovation is a key term, but one which will also only get people talking about you for about a week before they move on to whatever the next big discovery is. As a nation of modernity, they tend to idealize meritocracy in education, giving everyone a shot to be the best and exemplifying everything which is the best. Of course, this attitude is also used to look down on those who do not succeed, believing they were not meant for greatness like others, in a sort of idea of destiny. That said, the attitude does not allow them to stand tall as a nation of science. It does allow them to stand tall being a nation of science, being able to build up in the deadly manner waste and continue to advance forward at all times. Whether it is worthiness or just plain luck. Speaking of luck, it stands as another pillar of belief of what allows one to succeed, and, as one can imagine, gambling is big in the city, even if much of it is underground. Other bits of culture to note is that, because of the influence of Briggs' faith, there's a strong belief in logical and illogical foods, on whether they make a person more or less alert, more or less able to deal with the day-to-day, which of course makes coffee popular. There's also a large breadth of secret societies, and almost everyone is tied to one another in some way. The nation's defense force are the shield marshals. They serve the part of local guards, with the addition of owning guns, of course. These soldiers are the best trained in the use of the firearms, knowing full well they need to deal with others with firearms, and also given the duty of retrieving any firearms which are illicitly taken and returning them back to the proper place, or to where they can be resold again, whichever benefits in this situation. Alkenstar is a constitutional monarchy, with the descendants of Ansel Alkenstar being a non-political party who is advised by several branches. That said, the Alkenstar family does work to create a shadow cabinet to influence the other branches of government for their own benefit. These branches being the High Parliament, the Grand Duchess, and the Equipoise Council. The High Parliament is made of ministers elected to the positions, and are in charge of running the daily happenings of the city. They are also in charge of electing the Grand Duchess, or Grand Duke, but it is currently a Duchess. Her duty is first among equals, what others would call a Prime Minister, and is the one who moves the nation to serve different interests in long-term capacities. Finally, the Equipoise Council is appointed by the Grand Duchess, the three positions being advisors to her, these being the Iron Master, who is in charge with national security, the Lord Armorer, who is in charge of the city's industry. Don't know why that was so hard to say. And the High Chamberlain, who is chief bureaucrat. All three serving as the cabinet of the Duchess. The city itself is divided into two. The pristine sky side, where all those with money live, and the grittier smokestacks, where one lives among the factories and smoke and the rough and tumble of the society. There are various famed landmarks on both sides. In Skyside, one will find Kespar Alkenstar, the main citadel where the government happens and where the Grand Duchess is given residence. The north-south meridian is the diplomatic quarter, or, in actuality, where the moderates of all the nations in the impossible lands come together to try to make sure Nex and Geb never go to war again, even though how impossible that likely is. The Bridge of the Gods was originally made by religious fools who never asked permission for it to be built. So the project was aborted after some persuasion, with only a road between Alkenstar and Dungon Hold to show for it. As for Smokeside, Pastilia Street is the largest concentration of restaurants in town, and adventurers can be found in one tavern or another at all hours of the day. And of course, we cannot go through an Alkenstar video without a look at Dungon Hold. The second Sky Citadel to be established, which makes it older than High Helm, and it was made in part with an alliance with Osirian, when they had control over this region. Dwarves controlled these lands for many years, until Nex and Geb built their lands on either side of the territory. This, of course, eventually led to the Dwarves' underground retreat until the coming of Ansel Alkenstar. Now the Sky Citadel is open for business, and its citizens have sworn never to run away again. Dungon Hold exists on two timescales: the traditional Dwarven 40-hour forge day, and what is referred to as coin days, which is accounted for the purpose of trading with outsiders by calculating the normal 24-hour travel of the sun. You know what I'm talking about. From their location, the Sky Citadel has been influenced by the cultures of Osirian, but also of their Kulnet brothers, who are the ones who live underground under Geb. This influence has led to quirks not found in other Dwarven cultures, like a higher standard of cleanliness to eliminate any potential of undead, or a love for all things cat. Speaking of cleanliness, their living in the manor waste has them cautious about all things corruption, and they will eliminate anything which might be contagious, even if that thing is living. Such ideas also come with the newer innovations, on whether prosthetics are acceptable or it is just letting something non-dwarf be part of their body. At the very least, all can agree a bowl of forged stew in the middle of a long day is always worth the time. Dungon Hold is mostly Dwarven in population, so tensions are not between people, but between generations. With the influx of ideas and technology almost every day, the world around them is changing. And so the old hold on to the past, remember Nex and Geb, and work to ensure they are protected at all costs. The young, however, embrace the new, and are more than happy to learn new technologies, new weapons, new languages, new cultures, all even at the potential of recklessness. However, the dwarfs do have an underclass within Dungon Hold, known as the Genge, which are descendants of those who are blamed for the initial Dwarven retreat underground, saying that they were the ones who retreated first, forcing the others to have to retreat, and more or less have a blood libel upon them, as if Dwarven culture was not already veiled Jewish culture. Either way, the Genge are also willing to embrace the new, seeing the meritocratical ideals being their way to succeed despite being othered by their own people. But of course there are traditionalists who see it as their own duty to keep the Genge in the mud, one way or another. Like all Dwarven nations, rulership is hereditary. The current High King is Anarg Arnok, the one who made the original arrangement with Ansel Alkenstar all those years ago. To put some balance to power, the High King is said to be advised by 3 advisors known as the Angels of Oppose, though the 3 of them being the Keepers of the Skyflame, the Gold Hand Lodge, and the Sparkforge Collective. The Keepers of the Skyflame are the traditionalists, zealous moral guardians, and those who ensure the nation does not drift too far from what it means to be Dwarven. The Golden Lodge are those in charge of money and trade, and like having the doors open to money and trade, as you would expect. The Sparkford collection is the newest political faction, only raising recently as opposed to existing since the crest for the sky like the other two. And they are the ones who work the closest with guns and the people of Alkenstar who help them produce them. For some specific locations, we first start with Tarek's Promise, the foundation of this bridge abandoned during the next Geb War. It was of course later rediscovered by religious fanatics who wished to build a large bridge across the entire desert, and this became half of the Bridge of the Gods, connecting it to Alkenstar. The other path to Alkenstar is the Penitent's Reach, the series of tunnels which the dwarfs of the Hold used to receive water during their retreat underground and the time of their return. The actual location where they retreat underground is a large cavern known as the Romarian Vaults. The trade district is referred to as the Citrian Quarter, and the heart and central keep of the city is the Dungon Hold. And that ends today's episode. Lair sure didn't give a genre away due to being a city-state, and the post-Christmas recovery, of course, but still gets you an idea of wandering the city streets. I just need to find time to do next, but in all honesty, that'll probably be going to be months from now. But until then, we have more God videos and more planet videos, both of which are coming this month. So, stay tuned.